that.
Oh yeah.
By Super Seamster Sewing Show, cold interview, you and Nick on Moats, Bakerfield, CA. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It was like I said, it was a great time. I want to get to this alleged beef between Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Allegedly, they're on the outs with each other. There are a few reasons as to why people believe that, but I wanted to get your take on that first before I dive into some of the reasons people have been talking about online.
Oh, I thought we had a clip.
No. I got a couple things I just want to hear your country. You're unfortunately chronically online like myself, so I just wanted to get your quick take on that before I dive into some of the stuff that we've been seeing.
I'm not taking it very seriously. I mean, Trump literally danced like a bear on a unicycle in front of a bank of Israeli flags, bragging to an audience about how quickly he got things done for the Adelsons. You really think that all of a sudden he's going to assert some kind of independence? The rumors that he hung up on him? Yeah, I mean, Netanyahu's an asshole. Who likes Netanyahu? Who likes that guy?
Like literally no one. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Trump has a short fuse. Yeah, that probably happened. I would liken this though, like, why are we hearing about it? For the same reason that we heard the Biden White House put out these kinds of rumors too, if you recall. Oh yeah, no, Biden has had it with Netanyahu. It's giving them cover for the fact that they're giving Israel everything that they want. That they Trump, whatever his failings, he's pretty politically savvy. I've said this over and over and over again. I've been to MAGA rallies. I've been to Trump events. I went to what we call Braga, the Bronx MAGA rally. And yeah, man, most of the MAGA people, they don't like this Zionism shit. They go along with it because the boss tells them they have to go along with it. And the voices are getting louder and louder from that coalition, like Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out and saying, why are we supporting Israel? Tucker Carlson, who has a lot of clout. The fact that conservative media is killing it right now and the Daily Wire is going bankrupt tells you a lot about how that base really feels about Zionism. So I would say, yeah, this probably happened, but why are you hearing about it? They're trying to appease that rumbling that they're seeing growing in the MAGA base about Trump's subservience to Netanyahu.
So I don't know if I would classify subservience necessarily to Netanyahu. I do believe that he's subservient to Israel, beyond anything else, because I feel like Bibi at some point forgot that he is subservient even to Zionism, the ultimate goal of Zionism in Israel. He at some point began to feel like he is Israel, that he is Zionism. And I feel like that's actually probably been his biggest mistake thus far. Now I can see why some people would get the idea that he and Netanyahu are on the outs, but I don't know if people are conflating this idea that they're on the outs or confusing it rather with Trump is realizing that he doesn't run the show, that the United States doesn't have as much military influence that we once had. He can't just come in there, wave a stick, and expect things to go his way, especially as these other coalitions around the world are beginning to build up, and we don't have an answer for it at the moment. So, for example, some people are mentioning the fact that the B-2s, it's the stealth B-2 bombers that were in Diego Costa, that were basically open threat to Iran. That's basically what they were there for. They're pulling out. They pulled out all of them out of nowhere. So we know that Iran and Israel they've been kind of on the outs, and Israel is openly threatening Iran as we speak. I mean, every day is when there's a new threat from Israel to Iran, but yet and still knowing that Trump pulled out the B-2s, and this is all within the time frame of firing Mike Waltz, the threats coming from Bibi to Iran, and Iran saying that they're going to retaliate, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the situation with Yemen, which is one of the strangest situations that I have ever seen, because Trump comes out and says, we're not going to attack Yemen anymore because the Houthis have agreed that they're not going to attack us or any other ships coming in. Well, they haven't attacked any U.S. naval vessels. So it would only be commercial ships. But Yemen came out and was like, we have made no such agreement. We will continue bombing the shit out of y'all or out of the commercial ships. And matter of fact, hold on, let me see if I can put. Yeah, I got a clip. Not only are they going to keep the blockade on the sea, but they're going to blockade through the air. That's what they said. Hold on, I got a clip right here.
When did that come out? I didn't even see that.
It was around the time that they attacked the Ben Gurion airport. We posted on Hotspot, actually. It was from May 10th. So this is after that conversation that Trump came out and was like kind of almost gracious towards the Houthis, saying that they're brave and they're strong fighter. We really beat them down. We really did, but they're just really, really good. I'm like, I feel like I don't know if like you're trying to. Is this a compliment? Like how they
very tough negotiators.
Yeah, they're very tough negotiators. They took a beating. They really took a pounding. I'm like, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like, yeah, the people of Yemen did, but not the actual Houthis. It was just the problem, right? So this is what
الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت مطار اللد المسمى إسرائيليا مطار بن غوريون في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ باليستي فرط صوتي، وقد حقق هدفه بنجاح بفضل الله، وقد فشلت المنظومات الاعتراضية في التصدي له، وتسبب في هروع ملايين الصهاينة المحتلين إلى الملاجئ وتوقف حركة المطار قرابة الساعة. ونفذ سلاح الجو المسير في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية استهدفت هدفا حيويا للعدو الإسرائيلي في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بطائرة مسيرة نوع يافا. تجدد القوات المسلحة اليمنية تحذيرها للشركات التي لم تستجب بعد لقرار الحظر بأن عليها سرعة وقف رحلاتها الجوية إلى فلسطين المحتلة كما فعلت بقية الشركات الأخرى. إن قرار حظر الملاحة الجوية إلى مطارات فلسطين المحتلة وكذلك حظر مرور السفن الإسرائيلية في البحرين الأحمر والعربي بالإضافة إلى العمليات الإسنادية مستمر حتى وقف العدوان على غزة ورفع الحصار عنها.
So first of all, let me just say that is an intense guy. That man is a very. I can't blame him, man. It's an intense situation, but that boy, every time he talks, boy, he is dead ass serious. So what? Basically, he said Trump said that he's not going to attack commercial vehicles, or that the Houthis aren't going to attack more commercial ships. And this guy's like, nah, bro. Not only we're attacking commercial ships, but we attacking everybody. You fly through the air, you come through the sea. We're going after you. So. Why would Trump say that? Why was and I confirmed. I thought I was crazy, but no, I confirmed the naval fleets have been leaving the Red Sea. So he's not just talking. Like Trump wasn't just talking. He actually does plan on stopping bombing Yemen. So why did he say that Yemen plans on stopping commercial ships if they're not planning on it? So do you get why? So you get why people I think are saying like, "Damn, did BB really piss off Trump that much that he's like basically giving the middle finger to all the policies in our military alliance?"
All right, I have a theory about Trump.
I want to hear
it. Okay, so I think it was Woodward. Yeah, it was Woodward. He did a book early in Trump's first term. And Woodward, yeah, man, he's Libby, but I do trust his facts in his reporting. He's coming out of the old school kind of journalism, fact check everything and triple check your sources. I trust him in terms of the technicalities of reporting. So when he says this happened, I believe it happened. He gives a very, very revealing account of Trump when he first became president, having to call military families about the deaths of their kids and being really bothered by it. I think what that tells you is somebody who has not aspired to be in politics their entire lives, has not come up through politics, has not gone through the process of giving away all the pieces of your soul and moral compass that you have to give away to become the president. He kind of came in through a side door. It's
Yeah.
one thing to be a New York real estate douchebag. It is another thing to be the level of evil that is expected of the president of the United States. I think that level of, it's one thing to call up people and say,
It,
"Yeah, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to leave with your 3 kids from our property by the end of the month." That's one thing. To be calling people up being like your kid is dead. I think Trump really legitimately does not like war. I think he's squeamish about
mhm.
it. I think
Which
it
is why he's
bothers
so
him.
obsessed with drone strikes rather than actual sending troops on the ground.
Yeah, I think he just the life he lived before he got into politics did not prepare him for the level of moral responsibility involved, not in screwing a bunch of general contractors as he was wont to do in his business life, but causing the death of millions of people. I don't think he's comfortable being put in that position. I also think philosophically, if you look at the way he looks at things, it's very 20th century, man. Like America is a country, and why are we involved with all these things and all these people? We should just make merchandise and schmatas and sell
Yeah.
things at 5 and dime stores. He has this very 1955 vision of how the economy should work and how the
Yeah.
world should be. It's a wonderful life. He wants everything to look like that in his mind. I think he legitimately feels like war is wasteful. Why are
Mm,
we involved in these places? I do think that's his first instinct. So does he resent Netanyahu and other forces trying to drag us into more involvement overseas? Yeah, I think so. I think so. That's why, both me and Keaton going into the election, of course, we didn't endorse either major candidate.
mhm.
But we said, yeah, man, gun to your head. You'd have to go for Trump because there's one empty bullet in the Russian roulette chamber with Trump.
Yeah.
With
That's
Harris,
a good way to
man,
describe
the deep state's just going full bore into World War III. So this
Yeah.
is an example of it. Him pulling these ships out, would that have happened under Harris? No way. I don't think so.
No. No. No, it would have been no, I mean, we know because Joe Biden tried to create a coalition of other countries to use their navies in conjunction with ours to attack the Houthis. So we know it wouldn't have happened. If anything, she would have tried to ramp it up. Now, it wasn't as successful because those other countries were a little bit smarter. They were like, yeah, see, here's the thing. Nah, y'all can handle that yourselves. Which is crazy because in reality, the beef between Yemen and Israel and all the attacks from the Houthis on those commercial liners, that doesn't really affect the United States all that much, if at all. It actually affects Europe, affects the companies from there,
Right,
and obviously
right,
it affects Israel.
right.
So us getting involved really only, I mean, we saw with the text, they were like, man, we're just kind of bailing out Europe once again. They said it, not me. They were like,
Right.
yeah, we're just bailing out Europe. But when it was time to build a coalition to go after the Houthis in the Red Sea to let their commercial liners through, they were like, nah, we're good. So it's like, why are we doing it? It's
Uh,
obviously because of Israel, but
yeah. I think Israel, it's hard to see it now. I think
mhm.
Israel as a country is done. The
Yeah.
question is, are there going to be any Palestinians left to enjoy that ultimate victory? Like that's the horror of it. Who's going to
Or at least
want to
Palestinians in Palestine, because there's a bunch of them in Jordan, but I doubt they're leaving to
There
go
will
back
be
to
some
Palestine.
Palestinian people, but as a mass population with a territory, is that going to outlast Israel? But if you look at what's happening in terms of the brain drain, in terms of the collapse of their businesses, in terms of
Mhm.
bankrupted ports, in terms of its international reputation, which it is never going to recover. In the
Yeah.
end, the truth will out. In the end, the Zionists are already losing control of the narrative. They are not going to be able to wield the kinds of levers of power forever that they wield now. And in the end, what's happening now is going to be remembered by history as one of the great world historical crimes against humanity. And the country responsible for it is not going to be able to survive that in its current form. Israel, as the apartheid state that it is not going to last.
It can't.
It's doing just horrible acts against the Palestinian people while it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to me because, like I always say, I feel like there were people who they fell into really, I guess, 3 categories. They were on the complete and total wrong side of history, right? Like they believed everything that the Zionist propagandists put out, but it was because they were ignorant and literally they never got any information from the other side. It was damn near like you couldn't receive it. There was actually a point on when I first started YouTube, when I tried to put something out about Palestine, it was immediately demonetized or blocked.
Really?
And and I didn't. I'm like, what the?
How many years ago was that?
2014, 2015.
Wow.
And I was kind of confused.
Wow.
Yeah, bro. Like I remember I tried to put something out about Soros. This is around the time I found out Soros was Jewish. I didn't even know Soros was Jewish at the time, which is kind of crazy. I know, but I just never knew. And they like, no, can't. They just cut it off. Wow. I tried to put something out about Rothschild and his involvement in the founding of Israel. That got demonetized and then eventually taken down. Yeah, bro. I was like, what the?
Dude,
what is going on?
There's video of his descendant proudly talking about that.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to talk about it if you're criticizing him. So, you're not allowed to talk. Come on, y'all don't find this a little bit suspicious? Like, it's kind of weird, ain't it? Like the Rothschilds have been responsible for so many wars and for like 200 years of wars in Europe, and then out of nowhere, Hitler comes around and he gets to just blame Jewish people in general. But it seems like it was actually because of one Jewish guy, and then he was able to kind of like permeate that throughout society as like trying to blame all of them,
right?
Like because of him. And then the one thing that people would argue that Rothschild wanted, and not just Rothschild, but a lot of Zionists obviously at the time wanted, was Israel. And then the guy responsible for almost every major war in Europe in history basically was also responsible for the founding of Europe. It even got rewarded with his own street, the main street in Tel Aviv. And everybody was like, that's anti-Semitic. I was like, no, that's actually a factual thing. These are all factual things. But
that's that's something that me and Keaton always bring up. All of this, when you suppress speech like this, it's not really doing anything to combat the trope that there's a secret cabal of Jews controlling the flow of information in the world. Like it doesn't do any good to not allow people to talk about. It does the opposite, to not talk about the Havara Agreement, to not allow people to talk about things like that or to dismiss it or to minimize it.
Bro, you know how much I found out because like I was like disallowed from, or something got maybe demonetized or taken off my. I was like, why is this getting taken down? I did not know this was that big of a deal, and then I kept doing more research. And I'm like,
I'm surprised because back then, though, that's kind of like the last days of the Wild West of YouTube. So I'm surprised they did that back then, even that they were demonetizing it.
I was somebody said it was because of my thumbnails. It was giving off like it triggered the algorithm to then go to then have them look at my video, and then they decided. And so like they're like, if you do any coverage of Palestine, you have to actually change the thumbnail. I was like, what? That's kind of weird. I had no idea that the media was this bot. And my ex was Palestinian. She was the one who told me in like 2011, 2012, how biased the media was against Palestine. I'm like, really? But if y'all are getting slaughtered like that and like literally living through an apartheid, why wouldn't they cover it? She was like, they always lie about war and they lie about Arabs and who's responsible for what. She was like, they lied about Afghanistan. And I was like, yeah. She's like, they lied about Iraq. I was like, yeah. She's like, they even lied about where they've we supposedly this was the war in Afghanistan was about 9/11, and they went to Afghanistan, but we don't really know why they went there because Osama bin Laden was actually from the Saudi Arabian royal family, so they should have probably started asking them. They never even thought about going into Saudi Arabia to go kick their door down, and somehow he ends up found allegedly in Pakistan. I was like, oh yeah. She was like, so why the hell would they be telling the truth about Israel and Palestine? I'm like, oh, yeah, actually, when you put it like that, That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense as to why they would be protecting an apartheid state. So, but the other category I was going to say that people fell in was like they just didn't care or they didn't know. And it sucks that it took a genocide for people to finally realize, like, oh shit, there's a Holocaust happening right in front of our eyes.
Oh yeah.
There's an like we thought apartheid was over when South Africa officially ended it, but no, it's still happening. So,
well,
it's
October 7th really forced a lot of contradictions out into the open. The first thing I wrote about it right after October 7th, I wrote an article about the Frankenstein monster of critical theory and the way it was turning back now on its creators. Because for decades, in my opinion, academia turned the focus of social justice toward examining crimes of history and a very theoretical framework that was no real threat to power, right? Turn all the rage on crimes of the past and slavery and sins of the past, which with almost no discussion of slavery now. There are more slaves on the earth today than there have ever been, but never directing that, see these crimes of the past that we hate. Well, now we have to, in the present, take action. No, nothing like that, only in regards to microaggressions, manners, things that don't fuck with the money, things that don't fuck with the power. Now, you've been telling them for decades, you've been rearing them on France Fanon and post-colonial theory and telling them how enlightened they are and how enlightened these institutions of power have become, how we've moved past that. And now you have in broad daylight a settler colonial state committing exactly the kind of apartheid system and the kind of genocidal intent against a brown population that you've been using as a shield for your own actions for decades. And now they come out and protest it and demand that you divest from the country responsible. And all of a sudden, you call in the cops to crack their heads and you start expelling and suspending them. It just revealed what a lie that entire project was. Not
the academic is like the academics were the ones telling us to be outraged. It was the academics telling us to be outraged at what was, and then it was like, then the academics calling the cops to crack the heads of the students. They told them to be outraged.
Exactly. They only wanted the performative element of what they were teaching. When these kids tried to put it into action, when they actually tried to apply post-colonial theory to a current event, they saw the real face of power. And it is, in a lot of ways, very similar to what happened in the Vietnam era. Because remember, part of why the hippies and the yippies were so disillusioned was that post-World War II, they were really reared on the idea that America had fought the Nazis, which was this horrible racist regime, right? They had been reared on the idea that America is good and that America fights good wars and that the Nazis and the Axis are bad. They fight bad wars. And then when Vietnam happened and they started looking at race in the country as something that was in the present, it was very shattering to the way what they had been brought up to believe America was. These kids who grew up watching Davy Crockett on TV, right? America's the good guys, and none of that was true. I think October 7th, in a lot of ways, was that moment for Gen Z, where they realized everything they'd been taught about what America was a lie.
Yeah, even some millennials. I would say even some like some of the older, perhaps millennials.
Yeah, sure.
Who kind of still believed in like the World War II being this great war. When I tell people, like, obviously the United States didn't even enter until it was like late, and then like they didn't even really step foot in Europe to fight a Nazi until like 2 years after that.
Right.
They were in Africa protecting British colonies. Like people didn't even realize that. And I'm like, yeah, like we really didn't do shit. We dropped some bombs and took all the credit. It's really American, I guess, when you think about it.